Hello everybody, it's Kevin from Klotz Productions. Welcome back to another Magic the Gathering video, not a gameplay video. This time we're going to be opening 100 packs from the new set, Zendikar Rising. And I'm not going to waste your time with an intro. I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to be opening up, open them up, looking at the rares and the uncommons. I won't go through the commons, but so we got Skyclave Shadow. You can pay 1/1 black, sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever a creature with a 1/1 counter on it dies, you draw a card. Thwart the Grave. Costs 1 less for each creature in your party. Return target creature. Target card. Creature card. And up to 1 target cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard. Basically a party from graveyard to the battlefield. So that's 2 creatures. And the rare is Undo Version, which is the land that comes into play tapped. Or you can destroy all non-land permanents. Turn Spark Mage. Enters the battlefield, deals X damage to target creature planeswalker, where X is the number of creatures in your party. It's a tap land. Target creature gains protection from the color of your choice till end of turn. And Zareth Sand the Trickster has flash, 2 blue-black. You can return an unblocked attacking rogue to its owner's hand, and you put it into play. Tapped and attacking, so basically you replace him. When he deals combat damage to a player, you can return a permanent card from that player's graveyard into the battlefield under your control. And uncommon, 3 less cast if you control it, or if they have 8 or more in the graveyard, and you gain control of target creature with X. Charix, the Raging Isle. Spells your opponent's cast that target Charix. The Raging Isle costs 2 more to cast. Pay 3, he gets plus X minus X to end a turn, where X is the number of islands you control. He costs 4. Core Blade Master, double swap. I didn't even see what my rare was. Let's go back to... What was the rare that I got? Wasn't this, because I already had this. Already had that one. Already had that one. Shadowvert. No, I already had that card. Already had this one. Okay, it was the second one of these. I already had one. So sacrifice X lands for each land sacrifices while you draw a card, and then you can play X additional lands this turn, and lands enter the battlefield tapped. Let's go ahead and clear all these new ones. Okay. Try not to skip again like that. So, sacrifice a creature, draw a card, and 2 and tap it. As long as you control Cleric, Relic, Vial has whenever a creature opponent controls, or you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life. And when it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library, may play it this turn. Leaving Skydiver, it's 2/1 flying, kicker, can't be 0, so you have to actually pay something. In his battlefield, if it's kicked, you gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. If it's an artifact, is an equipment, attach it to him. So kicker for 1, does 1 damage to each creature. If it kicked, it does 2 instead. I got an uncommon, and Wayward Godbeast. He's Trample Haste 2/2. When he deals combat to a player, you return a land control to its owner's hand. Not really sure how good he can be. It's kind of a big drawback. You have to return a land you control to your hand. You choose a creature, you lose 2 life to it in a turn. When it dies, you return it to the battlefield tapped. And this also makes mana. This makes mana. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant sorcery card from among them. Put it in your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. And Nimble Trap Finder. Can't be blocked if you had a cleric, rogue, warrior, or wizard, so a party member enter the battlefield. At the beginning of combat in your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control gain. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card until end of turn. So we got Menace. Gets +3/+0 as long as there's an opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. And it can also add black. Kicker for 3. When there's battlefield, if it's kicked, all creatures able to block it do so this turn. Valakut Awakening. Taps for red. Add any number of cards. Put any number of cards from your hand onto the bottom of your library, then draw that many cards plus 1, so it's a recycle of your hand. And it's also a land. Counter target non-creature spell unless they pay 1, additional 1 for each creature in your party. 4 of a kicker, search your library for 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library if it was kicked, put 2 1 counters on a creature you control, and a mythic wild card. The same card, counter 1, 1 for each party. We've seen this one before, the Relic of Iona, sacrifice a creature, draw a card. As long as you control a relic, or a cleric, then they lose when you gain 1. Nahiri, Heir of the Ancients, +1, create 1/1 core. You can attach an equipment to it. -2, look at the top 6 of your library, may reveal a warrior or equipment. Put them in your hand. Reveal a warrior or an equipment, yeah. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And -3, deals damage to target creature or planeswalker equal to twice the number of equipment you control. Uncommon. It's a kicker for 3. If it's kicked, it's the same one for the blocking. And a rare. I just bought all these packs with gold that I had been saving. Oh. I hate that I do that. Alright, it was a black card. Let's go see what it was. Was it this one? Yeah. Null Priest of Oblivion. Menace lifelink 2/1 with kicker. If it was kicked, you return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. So for 6, you get a Menace lifelink and you return a creature. It's actually not that bad. Well, in the right deck, obviously. Chant land. When it enters battlefield, draw a card, and then it makes a land where it only adds colors, so you can pay a life to get of any color. So you put it on your opponents. That's the same on blocker, dude. Shattering Charger, 3 trample haste with a 2 kicker. Enters battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it if it was kicked. If it doesn't have a 1/1 counter, you turn it to your hand at the end of combat, or beginning of your end step. So it's kind of like a fireball or a lightning ball, whatever it was. But, you know, if you pay 5, then you get a 5/3 with trample haste. So there might be a way to like make him get 1/1 counters on him when he comes into play automatically, so you won't have to bounce him. Not sure. So this is for the land. You top 6 instant or sorcery that we had before. Vigilance. It's also, you know, anything from a party. Costs 1 less for each card in your party. Magmatic Chandler. As long as there are 4 more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, it gets +3/+1, so it'd make him a 4/4. And you can discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You can choose one of them, play it this turn. Whenever you cast Kick spell, you gain 2 life. You can tap him for mana. You can give him protection from a color. It's also a land. And Ooze. And as a battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, so it's 3 for a 3/3 essentially. And when it attacks, you put another 1/1 counter on each attacking creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it. So when he attacks, he gets +1, adds another counter. If it's equipped, it has haste. When it dies, it does 1 damage damage equal to its power to any target. 1 damage to any target. If it's dealt damage this way, if it dies this turn, exile instead. It's also a land and a mythic. We've seen him before. 1 less for each in your party and a common. And a Legion Angel is a 4/3 flyer. When he comes into play, you can search for another Legion Angel that you own outside the game. So basically, you can have 3 in your sideboard or 2 in your sideboard or whatever, and keep searching for them. Fights a creature you don't control. It's also a land. Each opponent loses 4 life. You gain 4 life. It's also a land, and it's the second one of the Valakut Awakens that we got before. Same where you kick spell, gain life. In this battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, so it's basically 3 mana. Each player sacrifices a creature. Or 3 mana target player sacrifices a creature because he would just die himself. Tabarak's Hope's Demise, 3 for 2/2 flying, has lifelink, has 5 or more 1 counters on it, 1/1 counters on it. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, you put a 1/1 counter on it. If the creature is a cleric, you can draw a card and you lose 1 life. You may. Sacrifice a land, search for 2 lands, put them on the battlefield. So it's a ramp spell. Creatures you control get +2/+2 at sorcery speed. It's also a land, and another Ondu inversion, which was the first pact we opened. So it's a land, but you can destroy all non-land permanents for 8. Imperial Captain, flying vigilance 1/1. Enters battlefield with a 1/1 counter for each creature in your party, an uncommon. And Lotus Cobra, whenever a land enters the battlefield, under your control, you add 1 mana of any color. 2/1. That's a card a lot of people are building around right now because of the landfall stuff. So an uncommon. 4 damage to our creature, Planeswalker for 2 as a sorcery. And Varol's the Split Dragon. I don't know if we opened one of those before or not. Has X counters on it when it comes into play. Whenever you cast a kick spell, you can remove 2 counters from it. If you do, you copy that spell. You can choose new targets. I feel like that's a fairly interesting card. One less reach in your party, you gain 3 and draw 3. Haste, can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. It's 2 mana, and whenever a land enters the battlefield, he gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I feel like that'd be a decent card, because it'd be a 3/3 with haste that can't be blocked by little dudes. Another Ooze. Enters battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. It's the same one we saw before. So it's the second one of those. Double Strike. Equipped warriors you control have Double Strike. Sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with 1/1 counter on it dies, draw a card. And rare land, so it's either green or white, whichever one you want to play it for. And I think it enters tap, I'm not sure. 1 less for each creature in your party. If it's kicked, tap up to 2 creatures. Mirrored Constraint, 4 for a 4/4 with a 3 kicker. If it was kicked, it enters with a +1/+1 for each non-basic land your opponent controls, so you can get really big. When it becomes target of a spell, sacrifice it and create that many 1/1s. So I want to go back and look at that land. Oh, let me go to rare here. Okay, so it doesn't enter tap, so it's either green or white. So that's pretty good. An update's available. I'll get that later. So we've got him before. It's 3% as long as they have 8 in their graveyard. It's 4/5 trample for 6. Also adds red. Nissa of the Shadow Bows? I don't know. Costs 4. It's 4 landfall. Put a loyalty counter on a Nissa you control, so landfall ups her. You can untap a land. It becomes a 3/3 with haste and menace till end of turn. It's still a land, so just till end of turn. And you can put a creature card with converted mana cost less or equal to the number of lands you control onto the battlefield from your hand or graveyard with 2 1/1 counters on it for her -5. So another one, the fight is a land. Gain control of a creature, untap it, it gains haste for 5. It's also a land. And another Lotus Cobra. So that's the second one of those. Uncommon. 1 for each party. Costs 1 less. And Nighthawk Scavenger, 3. Flying Death Touch, lifelink. It's a 1/3, and its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyard. So he might actually be decent if you're milling your opponent. Because 3 mana for a Flying Death Touch lifelink, that's like, can be like a 4/3 on average or something like that. In his battlefield, you gain 2 life. Attach it to a creature when it comes into play. They get +1/+0 for each creature in your party and has menace with equip 4. Inscription of Abundance, it's 2, has a 3 kicker. If it was kicked, you could choose any number instead of just one. Otherwise, you just pick one, and you either do 2/1/1 counters on a creature. You can have a player gain X life, where X is the greatest power among creatures they control, or you can make a creature fight. The creature you control fights a creature you don't control. Another uncommon, landfall, gets +2/+2 till end of turn, and crawling barrens. You can add colorless. You pay 4, put 2/1/1 counters on it, and it becomes a 0/0 to end of turn. Still land, so you can pay 4, make it a man land basically as a 2/2, and the next time you pay it, it's a 4/4, and it just keeps getting bigger. So throw it in a control deck, I guess. In his battlefield, each player sacrifices creatures. We had that before. This is a kicker. It's an enchantment. In his battlefield, if it's kicked, you create a 2/2 Drake. Whenever you cast a kick spell, you create a 2/2 Drake. Oh, I don't know why that canceled again. Where are we? Let's go to rare here. Only the new set, please. What was it? I don't even know what it was. It was a black rare. Unless he was a mythic. Wasn't either of those. Oh, he was a mythic. Okay. So he has kicker. When you cast a spell, if it was kicked, each player loses half their life rounded up. Its power and toughness is equal to 20 minus the highest life total. So if the highest person's at 10, then it's 2 mana for a 10/10. If you kick it, then it's 7, and you're at 20, then they lose half their life, so you're paying 7 for a 10/10. Uncommon, protection spell. Hexproof Haste for 7 has a kicker, can't be countered. If it was kicked, his 4/1 counter would be a 10/10 for 10. Otherwise, it's a 6/6 for 7. That can't be countered. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, you create a 1/1. You can give another creature lifelink. It's the look at the top 6, get an instant or sorcery. It's also a land. And Agadeem's Awakening. It's a land, you can pay 3 life to keep it untapped. Return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creatures that each have a different mana cost, X or less. So if you paid 3, you could get a 1, 2, and a 3 for 6 mana. It's also a land. One damage to any target. It's the exile card again. So if it was kicked, able to block that we had before, and that's another one of the man lands that we had. We've had that before. So 8 in the graveyard, he's bigger. 1 less for each creature in your party. It's basically an Oblivion Ring. It exiles a non-land permanent until it leaves the battlefield. 3 for 3/3, that's also a land, and whenever you landfall, it's +2/+2. So landfall makes it a 5/5. It's pretty good, in my opinion. An uncommon, so another Relic Golem. You can't attack or block unless the opponent has 8 more cards, 8 or more in the graveyard, and you can pay 2 to mill an opponent. 6/6. Angel Destiny for 5, flying double strike 2/6. Whenever a creature you control does combat damage to a player, you and that player gain that much life. At the beginning of your end step, if you have at least 15 more life than your starting life total, each player, Angel of Destiny, attack this turn loses the game. So basically, you try to make your opponent gain life, and you kill them by having them be at 35. You'd win the game. So 1 last for each creature in the party. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery or wizard spell, deals 1 damage to any target. And Maul of Skyclaves for 3. Enters battlefield attached to a creature you control. It gives the creature +2/+2 flying and first strike. So it's basically 3 mana for a 2/2 flying first strike, but it's pumping up another creature. Whenever you cast a kick spell, you scry 2, 5 for 4/4 flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card you can play at this turn. And another Cragplate Baloth. So that's the second one of those. So that's the get instant sorcery. That's also a land. Enters attached. The creature gets +1/+1. If it's a warrior, gets +2/+1. And another one of the Charks that we got earlier. I'd like to get the red warrior that makes the creature a coward from my red deck. So counter, let's say pay 1 for 2. It's also a land. 1 damage. If it dies, exile. Yep. And Inscription of Ruin for 3 has a kicker of 4. You either choose 1 or 2 if it was kicked. You make opponent discard 2 cards. You can turn a target creature with a converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, or destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less. And uncommon, whenever this creature and at least one other warrior attack, put a 1/1 counter on it, on this creature. Omnath, Locus of Creation, it's 4 different colors, the 4/4, enters the battlefield, you draw a card on landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 5 life. If it's the first time this ability is resolved this turn, if it's the second time, you add 4 mana. If it's the third time, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. So if you play him and get 3 lands to come into play, then you get 4 life, 4 mana, 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. And also you draw a card, obviously, always. So it's the Brushfire Landfall Dew that we had before. If it was kicked, you tap 2 creatures. We've pulled that before. And a second one of the Legion Angels that searches for other Legion Angels. Up to 2 target creatures get +X on a turn, where X is the number of creatures in your party. It's an instant. This has a kicker for 3. It's 3/3. In his battlefield, if it's kicked, you return a creature with a kicker ability from your graveyard to your hand. And Roiling Vortex, it's 2 enchantment. Beginning of each player's upkeep, it does 1 damage to them. Whenever a player casts a spell, if they didn't spend any mana on it, it does 5 damage to them, and makes your opponents where they can't gain life. So, sideboard card for mono red, probably. Kick, Scry 4, which we played before, or we got before. Whenever you cast a kick, this is landfall, gets +2/+2, and a mythic. Skyclave Pickaxe. You enter as attached to a creature. Landfall. The equipped creature gets +2/+2. It's a cleric. Whenever another cleric enters, you gain 1 life. Whenever you gain life for the first time each turn, put a 1/1 counter on him. And a rare. So if it's equipped, he has haste. And then when he dies, he deals damage to its power. When it attacks, target creature an opponent controls with power less than or equal to the number of warriors you control can't block this turn. And a 3rd Oran Reef Ooze. I think that's number 3. An uncommon, another Relic Golem that we had before, and another Mythic. Another Pickaxe. Marusa Root Grazer 2 for the 2/3 Vigilance. You can put a basic land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped by tapping it, or you can either return a basic land to your hand. And a second Omnath. It's another Little Mage Familiar. Whenever you cast Kick spell, you can get 2 life. We saw that before. That's the same cleric that we just saw. And a Kiri Fearless Voyager for 3. It's 3/3. Whenever you attack a player with 1 or more equipped creatures, you draw a card. And you may attach and unattach equipment from a creature you control. If you do, tap that creature. It gains indestructible until end of turn. You unattach an equipment from. So if you have an equipment on him and you attack and they block, or if you have an equipment on him and they try to kill him, you can pay 1 white, remove the equipment, and give him indestructible. Yeah. So 4 damage to a creature planeswalker. The landfall +2/+2 again. And here he's Litho forming, so that's the same land. You sack X lands, you can play the X lands from your graveyard, or you can play X more lands this turn. It's a 3rd one of those. Thorth the Grave, 1 less for each creature in your party. Return target creature card and up to 1 target cleric, rogue, warrior, wizard from your creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. I think we had that before. This is sacrifice lands. You get 2 lands. Coral Helm Chronicler for 3. It's 2/2. Whenever you cast a kick spell, draw a card, then discard a card, so you loot when you kick a spell. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. May reveal a card with kicker ability from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. About halfway through now. Got 49 packs left. So that's the 1 damage. If it dies, it's exiled. When deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card. And you can sacrifice it, draw a card, activate it only if an opponent has 8 or more in their graveyard. And another Agadeem's Awakening. So it's if you paid 6, then you can get a 1, 2, and a 3 back. And it's also a land. Uncommon, Blood Chief's Thirst. So destroy a creature with 2 or less. If it was kicked, you just destroy target creature or planeswalker. Or it's creature or planeswalker with 2 or less converted mana cost. Aura Skycleave Hierophant, 4 for 3/3, lifelink. When him and another cleric you control dies, return a cleric card with lesser converted mana cost from your graveyard to the battlefield. I don't know how good the clerics are, but if they are good, he would be good in it. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery or wizard spell, you can draw a card. If you discard, in his battlefield, you gain 2 life. It's also a land and another Thieving Skydiver. It's the second one of those. Creatures opponents control get -2, -0 to end a turn. It's also a land. It's an instant. Does damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target player planeswalker. It's also a land. And another Nighthawk Scavenger. I think it's 2 of those now. When you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on him. At the beginning of your end step, you create a 1/1 insect for each 1/1 counter you've put on creatures you control this turn. And Kazaa Royal Chaser, 2 for 1/2 flying haste. The next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast, where X is the number of wizards you control as this ability activates. So he would make something cost 1 less if it's just him in the play for your next instant or sorcery you cast. Counter target spell, and this is pay 1. It's also a land. Deals combat damage to a player. You exile that many from the top of their library, or from the top of your library. Exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. Second Nahiri. The 1/1 counter on target creature is also a land. This is a land where you lose 2 life, and if your next target creature dies this turn, or until in a turn you return to the battlefield tapped. And a third Thieving Skydiver. Uncommon, another one of the kicker taunting Airborne Mage. Yep. Maddening Cacophony, don't know how to pronounce that. So it has a kicker, each opponent mills 8 cards. If the spell is kicked instead, each opponent mills half their library rounded up. So it triggers those 8 cards in their library, or graveyard card, for 1/1 blue. And I was planning on making a rogue deck with that card. So this enters equipped, it gives a creature +1/+0. If they have 8 or more in the graveyard, it gets +3/+0. It's 1 damage to each creature. If it was kicked, it does 2 damage. And another Scourge of the Skyclave. So he's the one that's basically gets bigger as people get lower life total. Another Relic Golem, another Little Mage is familiar. Skyclave Apparition, 3 for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates an XX blue illusion creature token where X is the converted mana cost of the exiled card. So it gets rid of a 4 or less and then has the whole Oblivion Ring sort of thing. But instead of them getting the card back, they just get a creature. So 1 damage, 2 damage if it was kicked. Counter, let's say pay 1, 1 for each in your party. Squad Commander, 4 for 3/3. Enters battlefield, you create a 1/1 white core warrior creature token for each creature in your party. He's a warrior, so that's 1 in himself, so it makes 1/1. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible till end of turn. I don't know if the party mechanic's any good, but if it is, that card would be good in it. So as kicker, this is the enchantment. So if you kicked it, you get a 2/2. Whenever you kick a spell, you get another 2/2. Tap another untapped rogue you control. Shadow Stinger gains Death Touch till end of turn. Whenever Shadow Stinger deals combat damage to a player, that player mills 3 cards. And Master of Winds, 4 for a 1/4 flying. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards and discard a card, so you're basically drawing 1 additional card. Whenever you cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard spell, you may have Master of Wind switch its power and toughness to 4/1 or 1/4 until end of turn. Another Ravager's Mace, another Merfolk Windbender or Wind Robber. So you can sack it to draw a card if they have 8 or more, and another Nighthawk Scavenger. There may be 4 of those now, I'm not sure. Uncommon, target creature fights, and Throne of Makindi. It adds colors, so you can put a charge counter on it by tapping it. And you remove a charge counter from it, add 2 mana of any one color, spend this only to cast kick spells. So if you're building a kick deck, 3 less if they have 8 or more. Gain control of target creature with converted mana cost X or converted mana cost X. And another Shadow's Verdict. I have one of these, but it was in my draft. So you exile all creatures and planeswalkers with converted mana cost 3 or less from the battlefield, and all creature and planeswalker cards with converted mana cost are 3 or less from all graveyards. So it exiles all the creatures and then exiles all the graveyard if they're 3 or less. So 1 damage, the exile if it dies. 5/5 vigilance. It's also a party member, and 1 less for each in your party. Linval's Shield of Seagate, 3 for 3/3 flying. At the beginning of combat in your turn, if you have a full party, you can choose a non-land permanent and opponent controls until end of turn. It can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. I think the main ability on this creature, though, is that you can sacrifice it to choose hexproof or indestructible and give your creatures that you control that ability until end of turn. So you could play that with creatures, play Shadow of the Sky, sacrifice it to protect your creatures. So that gives them protection as the land. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand is also a land. No Priest of Oblivion. I think we got one of those earlier. So it's the 2/1 menace lifelink, and then you return a creature if you kicked it. Any creature. Another one of the protection that's land. Gain 3, draw 3. 1 less for each party. And another Scatter Skull Charger. So he's the one if he has the counter. He doesn't have to go back to your hand. If it doesn't have 1/1 counter, you return it to its owner's hand. So 1 less for each creature. We've already got that. Target opponent reveals a number of cards equal from their hand equal to the number of creature cards in your party. So it would be 1 if it's just him. You can choose one of those cards and they discard it. So he's basically a 1/2 for 2. When he comes into play, a player discards a card. But if you have other creatures, other party members, then you actually get to pick a card. 3 for 2, 3 flying. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Non-basic lands your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. It's a very situational card, I'm sure. The exact same card we just had. Relic Amulet. Whenever you cast an instant, sorcery, or wizard spell, you put a charge count on it. You can pay 2, remove all charge counters. Deals that much damage to a creature. And another Nighthawk Scavenger. Didn't have 4 before. I'm pretty sure we have 4 now. An uncommon, Skyclave Plunder. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is 3 plus the number of creatures in your party. So it's 3 by itself. Put 3 of those cards in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So by itself, it's 5 mana to draw 3. Morag, Fury of Akum, 6 for 6/6. Each creature you control gets +1/+0 for each time it is attacked this turn. So it would attack as a 7/6. And if you, for landfall, whenever land enters this battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this. At the beginning of that combat, untap all creatures you control. So if you play an additional, you play this, and you play a land, and you get an additional combat, and then like if you ramp to put another land into play, or if you put 2 lands into play, then you'd get 2 additional combats. But you only get the 1 main phase. It doesn't give you another main phase. So we've seen this card before. We've seen that protection spell and a mythic. Another one of the discards a card. The first kick spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a kicked spell, put a 1/1 counter on him. And a rare. Gives other warriors +1/+1 for 3. Search your library for 2 land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped. If you kicked it, you put 2 1/1 counters on each creature you control. kick for 4, and another Archon of Emeria. Blood Chief's Thirst, so it's 2 or less. If you kick it, it's any creature or planeswalker. Soaring Thought Thief, 2 for a 1/3 flash flying, as long as they have 8 or more in their graveyard. Rogues you control get +1/+0. Whenever one or more rogues you control attack, each opponent mills 2 cards. So it's also another card that I'll probably play in a rogue deck. Because if they have 8 in their graveyard, then he's 2 for a 2/3 flash flying. And it mills. Seagate Restoration, it's a land. You can also pay 7. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand +1. You have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. Uncommon, another Relic Vial, and another Linvala, Shield of Seagate, which is the ones you can sack to give your creatures hexproof or indestructible until end of turn. Whenever you cast Kick spell, scry 2, we've seen that. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 till end of turn. And another Valakut Exploration. I don't remember what that does. So when a land enters the battlefield under your control, you exile the top card of your library. You may play that card as long as it remains exiled. At the beginning of your end step, if there are the cards exiled with Valakut Exploration, put them into their owner's graveyard. Then Valakut Exploration deals that much damage to each opponent. So it's damage every turn. It's 1 damage every turn. But you can also, whenever a land, you get damage. But it also lets you get more cards whenever you... So it basically turns a land into the top card of your library. So it's kind of a card drawing mechanic for red, I guess. Another one of those. We've had one of these. Remember what it does. You create a 1/1 for each token. Or token for each 1/1 counter you've put on creatures you control. And another Angel of Destiny. So this is the one you win if they have 35 life. And when he attacks, they gain that much life. So it's the 3. Gets +3/+0. May play him in a rogue deck. I don't know. Because that would make him a 5/3 for 3 with Menace. It's also a land. Target creature and opponent controls with power less than or equal to the number of warriors you control can't block when it attacks, which we've already seen that, and another Mythic. Got 20 packs left to go. So as a kicker, if it was kicked, you return a creature with a card with kicker from your graveyard to your hand. This is an enchant land that makes their lands have to cost life in order to make color, and another one of the Ondu inversion, so that's 3. Another Taunting Abermage, another Attended Healer. So when you gain life for the first time, you create a 1/1 and it gives them lifelink. And a dual land, so it's either red or blue, depending on what you choose. Uncommon, fights, another Valakut Awakening. So basically refresh your hand and then draw one. In the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each color of mana spent to cast it, so it could essentially get 5, so it'd be a 7/8 for 5, but that'd be hard to do. Another Ravager's Mace, and a Gruul dual land, red or green. Another Acquisition Expert, another Skyclave Shadow Cat. You sacrifice another creature, put a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it dies, draw a card. And another Squad Commander. So he comes in and makes another one. And if you have a full party, they get +1/+0 until indestructible. So it's the one less. In his battlefield, you gain 2 life. It's also a land and another Valakut Awakening, which we just opened one of those. Allied Assault. Up to 2 target creatures, get +X on a turn where X is the number of creatures in your party. It's instant for 3. That's the 4 damage to a creature or planeswalker. To Juru Paragon, it's a new one. 2 for 3/2. It's also a cleric, rogue, warrior, and a wizard. Kick it for 3. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you reveal the top 6 of your library. You may put a card that shares a creature type with it among them into your hand, put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's basically a party card. 2 for 3/2. It works for party, and then if you kick it, then you can get you another party card. Add green. It's also a land. Additional cost to cast this. Sacrifice a creature, deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. So it's basically a 3-mana fling, but it's also a land. And the red or white dual land. An uncommon, another elemental with the landfall gets +2/+2 and can't be blocked by creatures with 2 or less. And the black and white dual land. So getting a bunch of the dual lands here at the end. Sure-footed Infiltrator. You can tap another untapped row. You can't be blocked. Deals combat damage to a player. You draw a card. Enters attached. They get +1/+1. If it's a warrior, they get +2/+1. Skyclave Relic, indestructible. Enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, you create 2 tapped tokens that are copies of it, and you add 1 mana of any color. So basically for 3, you get a mana accelerator. For 6, you get 3 mana accelerators. But they enter tapped. Another protection spell. Whenever a land in his battlefield and you control, you put a 1/1 counter on it and gains fly until end of turn. And Kargan Intimidator. That's one of the cards. I want it. It's 2 for 3/1. Cowards can't block warriors. You can choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn, but paying 1, you can either give him +1/+1 to end of turn, or you can make a creature a coward, or you can give a warrior trample. So you could make somebody not block him, basically, or you can make him a 4/2 for 1 mana. Or you can trample. So that's definitely good. It'll be a replacement card for mono red, I'm sure. An uncommon, another Skyclave Pickaxe. And another Tabarax. So he's the one that gets 1/1 counters. Whenever a non-token creature dies, if it's a cleric, you can draw a card and lose 1 life. Once it has 5 or more on it, it has lifelink. Another Pickaxe. Whenever you cast instant sorcery wizard spell, he gains flying until end of turn. 5 for a 4/3. It's also a land. And another Null Priest Oblivion. So he's the one that can return other creatures. So it's at least 3 of those. An uncommon, another Sure-footed Infiltrator, and the red-white dual land. So I think it's 2 of those. Double Strike. Equipped warriors you control have Double Strike. That's the Relic Amulet we've already gotten. And another Null Priest of Oblivion, so that's 4. Another Ravager's Mace. Veteran Adventurer. All the creature types, 1 less for each in your party. Lithoform Engine, so you can pay 4 for it. You can pay 2, copy target activated or triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the ability, so you can copy an ability. Pay 3 to copy an instant or sorcery spell. You can choose new targets, or you can pay 4 to copy a permanent you control, or a permanent spell. So you can basically copy anything for a certain amount of mana as you play it, including Planeswalker's abilities. Enters tapped, add a color list, add 1 mana of any color. You can only spend it to cast, or to play a party member, basically. There's another one of the Iridescent Horn Beetles. Priest of Iona, 1 for a star 2. His power is equal to the number of creatures in your party, so it's a party dude. He's a 1/2 by himself. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have a full party, you can give a creature +1/+1 and flying until end of turn. Another one of the Menace, Rogues. Another one when you kick, you scry 2. Bisharn, Implaceable Earth, 4 for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you search the library for a forest, forest card. Excuse me. For a basic forest and a basic plains, reveal those cards, put them in your hand, put the rest in the bottom, or shuffle your library. And then players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. 2 packs left. So when he deals damage, you can exile the top card and you can play it this turn. Another Relic Amulet, so it gets charges and the charges do damage. And another Seagate Restoration, where you draw 1 plus the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size. Last pack. An uncommon, another Relic Golem, and another Oran Reef Ooze. So I'm up to 121%, so I got about 20% in my vaults off that. Now it's 26 rares, 13 mythic rares. And I want to look at these lands here that I got. I wonder if they're basic lands or not. Guess they'll be after. all these. Nope. Let's do land, rare, Zendikar Rising. No, they're not basic lands. But you can see all the ones we got. We got 1 red green, 3 red white, 1 red blue, 4 of the Ondus, and 1 black white. Oh, we also got 1 of the green white and 1 of the blue black. So that's it. Hope you all enjoyed this video. I'm gonna go work on putting some more decks together with the new format, I suppose. Now that I've got cards to do it. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Follow, you know the drill. And I will see you all later.